Okay, we'll try this thing out. Wow, it's loud. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. It is April 7th, 5 o'clock. This is a regular meeting of the Santa Fe Public Schools Board of Education. Just want to say thank you, Superintendent, and everybody who's involved in getting us back to be in this room in person. It's really, really nice. And just to say that we would welcome anyone and everyone to wear a mask. Masks are optional, as they are in the rest of the district in our schools. There are masks in the back of the room for anybody who needs it, but we certainly welcome and encourage if wearing a mask makes anyone even a little bit more comfortable, or for whatever reason, please wear a mask. As ever, we will, and I should note that all board members are here with the exception of Vice President Rudy Garcia, who is excused for this meeting. We'll start as ever by doing the Pledge of Allegiance and salute to the New Mexico flag in English and in Spanish. And we have flags over here. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Juro fidelidad a la bandera de los Estados Unidos de América y a la república que representa una nación bajo de Dios, indivisible, con libertad y justicia para todos. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, the Zia symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures. Saludo la bandera del Estado de Nuevo México, el símbolo Zia de amistad perfecta entre culturas unidas. And now on to the acknowledgement of tribal land. We can stay standing. We acknowledge that our Board of Education meeting is taking place on occupied indigenous land. We acknowledge the Tesuque Pueblo lands and other tribal lands on which we stand. We honor these people, past, present, and future. We acknowledge the history and ongoing colonization of where we are sitting right now in New Mexico and in our country. We acknowledge our own place in the story of colonization. Thank you. Now we move on to approval of the agenda. Superintendent, do we need to change anything?
This evening, we have no changes, Board President Noble.
Thank you.
Madam President, I move to approve the agenda.
Thank you, Secretary Bozé.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Dr. Gonzalez. We can just do a voice vote now. We don't have to do a roll call vote, right? Okay. All those in favor of approving the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, we have approved the agenda. Moving on to Roman numeral 2, we are at executive session. Secretary Bozé.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to make a motion to bring the Board of Education into executive session where we will discuss collective bargaining, the Memorandum of Understanding between Santa Fe Public Schools and the National Education Association of Santa Fe for transportation stipends school year 2021-2022, and a Memorandum of Understanding between Santa Fe Public Schools and the National Education Association of Santa Fe for stipends school year 2021-2022 salary adjustment due to increase in unit value.
Okay, I'll go ahead and second that motion. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay, we are now in executive session. We will return on or about 5:30. Okay, it's 5:30. We might as well come back from executive session officially. Secretary Boze.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to make a motion to bring the Board of Education out of executive session where we discussed collective bargaining. Should I read it all again?
No, you can just say, and.
Regarding memorandum of understanding between Santa Fe Public Schools and the unions regarding some stipends, and no action was taken during executive session.
Excellent.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Dr. Gonzalez. All those in favor of coming back from executive session, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we are back, and welcome to everyone who is joining us, both in person and online. As we said at the beginning of the meeting, wearing masks here is optional, as it is in our district, and we certainly want to encourage anyone who feels somewhat more relaxed wearing a mask to do so. And we welcome everybody being here and are just very happy to be back in person. So great to see you all your faces. We are, let's see, is there anything to say else about being in person? I don't think so. Except maybe please bear with us, please bear with me. It's been a long time and I'm a little rusty, we're all a little rusty, and it's a lot of, sensory input after Zoom for so long. So we are on Roman numeral 3 on our agenda. Oh, here's the other thing to say. For anyone who wants to sign up for public comment, there is a sheet in the back of the room. So if you want to speak to us during the public forum section of the meeting, which is Roman numeral 5 on our agenda, please write down your name up there, and then we will call you up when the time comes. We are also have the ability, and I want to thank our public information officer for making this possible, for people to send in emails and comment for public forum via the phone. So we are making an effort to keep all of that in place, as well as having the option for public forum, of course, in person from the podium. Okay, I think that's all the introductory business. We'll move on to Roman numeral number 3, introduction of interpreter. I'm guessing that's you, Deputy Superintendent.
Si necesita servicios de traducción, la señora Carla González le ayudará. Gracias.
Thank you very much. And moving on to what is often the most uplifting part of the meeting, Roman numeral 4 is our school board showcase, and we'll start with Cesar Chavez Elementary School. Superintendent.
Thank you, Board President Noble. With us providing our introduction is Assistant Superintendent Kathy Casaus.
President Noble, board members, and Superintendent Chavez. I am so excited for tonight's presentation from Cesar Chavez Elementary. And I would like to introduce their dynamic duo leadership team of, sorry, did y'all get that? Principal Fernando Morales and Assistant Principal Alyssa Maestas.
Welcome. Thanks for being here.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Travis, I want to first and foremost thank you all, and thank you, Associate Superintendent Casaus, for entrusting us with amazing students at Cesar Chavez. Just to go real quickly, my name is Fernando Morales. I am the representative of 364 students at Cesar Chavez Elementary School, and we have our amazing and dedicated assistant principal here.
Good evening, Superintendent Chavez, Madam President Noble, and members of the board. We are so excited to be here with you all, and especially in person. I wanted to take a minute just to really thank and extend our school staff's gratitude to Superintendent Chavez and your leadership team. Our staff has said that the amount of appreciation and gratitude that they have felt this year has been felt, and they feel really heard and seen. So we appreciate that very much. And of course, I want to thank our incredible leader, Mr. Morales, who is working on the most amazing initiatives at Cesar Chavez, and I'm sure those will come through in our brief video. And I want to introduce our amazing White Tigers that we brought to represent our school body with us today.
Welcome, White Tigers.
Hello, my name is Eliza Seymour. I'm a student at Cesar Chavez Elementary School. I'm in the bilingual class, and I am part of the student council as the vice president.
Hi, my name is Nicholas. I'm a third grade student, and I play basketball for the White Tigers.
Hi, my name is Jaden. I'm in a bilingual class, and I play basketball for the White Tigers.
Welcome to all of you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, guys, and please enjoy the video.
Enjoy this video about our amazing school.
May you have auspiciousness and causes of success. May you have the confidence to always do your best. May you take no effort in your being generous. Sharing what you can, nothing more, nothing less. May you know the meaning of the word happiness. May you always lead from the beating in your chest. May you be treated like an esteemed guest. May you get to rest. May you catch your...
I like the teachers, and I like the assistant principal, and a lot of schools don't have a cooking with kids, so I really like that about Cesar Chavez. And Cesar Chavez was a nice guy.
that you gonna break. Here's to the lives that you gonna change. Here's to the infinite possible ways. Here's to the fact that I'll be sad without you. I want you. May you be as fascinating as a slap bracelet. May you keep the
There's people that care about everyone and me, especially the counselors, the principals, and the nurse.
I love my school because math.
You love math?
I love everything about my school.
that you gonna break. Here's to the lives that
I love my school.
here's to the infinite possible.
I love being a White Tiger very much.
Here's to the fact that I'll be sad without you. I want you to have it all.
Board President Noble. Ooh, that's really close. Do you mind if I say something really
Not at
quickly?
all. Go ahead. Remember it.
Thank you, Board President Noble, members of the board, Superintendent Chavez. I have to say something because my daughter attends Cesar Chavez. I'm going to start crying. It is just such an exceptional school with such an exceptional staff. And I could not be more grateful that she goes to such a wonderful school. And I think you saw a little bit of that coming through, but I just can't explain what an amazing family it is. So thank you all so much.
Thank you very much. And I think we have Secretary Bozet at some point said, well, the standard for school board showcase is you cry. So we're there. Thank you all very much. Thank you for having such a beautiful school and bringing a piece of that story and that color to us. Really great to have you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. We'll move on to our next school board showcase, which is item B on the agenda, Sweeney Elementary Art. Superintendent.
Thank you, Board President Noble, members of the board. With us tonight is our art coordinator, Miss Christina Gonzalez. She'll be doing the honors with introducing us to Sweeney Elementary Art.
Thank you so much, Superintendent Chavez, President Noble, members of the board, and Superintendent Chavez. It is my distinct honor to introduce our art teacher, Maria Aragon. She will be presenting about Sweeney. Maria was born in New Mexico and spent much of her childhood in Albuquerque and Gallup. She earned a BFA in painting from the University of Washington in Seattle and a master's in art education from UNM. Before entering education, Maria lived and worked as a photographer in Paris, France. And she continues to explore the intersection of her identity as an educator with her identity as an artist. In 2020, Maria was named Elementary Art Educator of the Year by the New Mexico Art Education Association. In Maria's words, teaching at a bilingual school with teachers from Mexico and Spain is one of the most enriching experiences of my career. I am very grateful to be part of Sweeney Elementary and Santa Fe Public Schools Art Department. And on a personal note, I am delighted that Maria came to Santa Fe Public Schools. It's such a pleasure to work with her. I think you will really appreciate her eloquence and her thoughtful dedication to teaching.
Thank you, Christina, for asking me to share. President Noble, board members, Superintendent Chavez. My name is Maria Aragon. I teach art at Sweeney Elementary. I joined Santa Fe Public Schools in August 2021. I was in Los Lunas for 5 years before that, and on the Zuni Reservation for 3 years before that. I'm here tonight to share Sweeney Elementary's art program with you. Throughout this presentation, I invite you to consider 3 questions. 1, how does art function uniquely in elementary schools? 2, what does standards-based instruction look like in the art room? 3, what can the art room teach us about culturally and linguistically responsive pedagogies? How does art function uniquely in elementary schools? We can see here how it reaches into all areas of life and experience. But before the finished projects we see hung in hallways, what does elementary art look like? Learning comes alive in the art room through exploration, experiential discovery, and in the wonder of making. It is an unpredictable, inclusive space of cooperation and collaboration. The interconnection of relationships between teacher, students, space, and materials allows for open outcomes which center students in the learning process. What does a day in the art room look like? How do we know children are learning the standards? Through art, children can embody their own learning. When students and educators are mutually engaged, the standards come alive, the verbs and the nouns. And engaged pedagogy emphasizes well-being. The art room naturally opens up pathways for social-emotional learning in a safe and creative environment. I've chosen some verbs and nouns here from the National Core Art Standards to show the wide range of activities and processes that guide our curriculum. As a classroom community, our capacity to generate excitement is deeply affected by our interest in one another, in hearing one another's voices, in recognizing one another's presence. This quote by the late educator and author Bell Hooks beautifully describes the classroom community. How can the community culture of the art room uplift student voices and experiences? Art can be a mirror for students to ask themselves questions about who they are, where they come from, and where they want to go. It is a door to open such questions as, What complex conversations that accompany culturally responsive pedagogy can art open up for children about identity, diversity, and equity? How do we nurture students' relationship to self? How can art integrate with social emotional learning? Culturally sustaining art education recognizes cultural identities as living and evolving when new generations inherit traditions and process them through their own lives. We are doing a disservice to students when we tell them what culture entails. My role is to facilitate student investigation into personal meaning making. Sorry. Here I've included student work examples from this year. On the left, I've created many new lessons based on traditional Mexican arts and crafts on which students could put their own 21st century spin. In other projects, such as the 4 Elements plate design in the center, I had students bring their Chromebooks into the art room so they could research their own images and references. I want them to pursue their own inspiration, not my perspective. I watch what imagery students create on their own. Favorites come up from pop culture like kawaii, manga, and comics. They can see themselves in the work they create. Material investigations can flip a switch and light students up. They find a personal reason to engage when they connect with the material or technique they love. I'm now going to use clay as the perfect example of material engagement. Children ask for clay. From the first month of school, I was continually asked by my students, when are we going to do clay? I decided to modify my curriculum map to begin clay projects sooner because I was observing a lack of interest and perseverance in many students. I wondered if this might be a result of burnout from remote learning. I wondered if bringing out clay could bring a change to their outlook and energy. Students opened up with this most elemental material. Screen time was replaced by actual earth. Hands got dirty and the senses were engaged. The charm of the finished projects you see here does not fully capture how students felt or what they experienced while they make them. The process is as important as the product. Okay. Culturally responsive pedagogy is given space to live and breathe in the art room. Our students need fluid instructional spaces where they are free to explore, question, and create. Learning through imagination and the artistic process is an open invitation for students to be themselves. To close, I will share this note I found one day. It's in the bottom center of the slide. It says, "I love art. Thank you, art." This second grader loves art so much that he wrote a thank you note to art. It reminds me that the relationships created through art education are real. I see them and kids feel them. These are the small moments of magic I get to witness daily as an art teacher, and I hope I was able to convey some of that to you. President Noble, board members, and Superintendent Chavez, I want to thank you for your ongoing support of arts education in Santa Fe Public Schools. Thanks to my principal, Dolores Montaña Peña, and my assistant principal, Roxanne Star Trujillo. Their support is an essential part of the art program. And thank you to Arts Education Coordinator Cristina Gonzalez. Your commitment to uplifting young artists is a driving force in our department. And of course, a very special thanks to the children and families at Sweeney who bring the magic of our education to life.
Thank you so much. That was beautiful and incredibly clear. Really appreciate it. And keep up the wonderful work and inspiration, please. Thank you for all you do. Okay, moving on. Actually, one other note of business, I wanted to welcome our student board members who we have joining us for the first time in person in their tenure as well. Just to note, it's also Board Member Anderson's first time up here. So again, we're all going to get used to the space again, but welcome Mr. McGinnis, Ms. Utreras. It's good to see you and great to have you in person. Okay, Roman numeral 5, public forum begins, and again, I'm not sure if we have, in what modality we will be having public forum, but the options are phone, email, and in person. So over to you, Mr. Janarski.
Good evening, Board President, members of the Board, Superintendent Chavez. We have 7 people signed up for public forum comment tonight. 6 are in person, and then there was 1 email that was sent in. Rules for public forum. Public forum includes online and/or virtual participation as needed, as well as in-person comments when in-person meetings. Please listen and speak with respect. No uncivil conduct will be permitted. Please do not discuss any specific student who is not your own. There will be no sharing of time. Self-monitor and observe the 3-minute time limit. I will give you a 30-second warning when your time is almost up. Public commentary and dialogue are allowed only during public forum, not throughout the meeting. Please search for answers on common ground. You may speak on any topic, whether it is on the agenda or not. Your input will be taken into consideration. Please be advised that the board may discuss your issue during the meeting, but by law, the board cannot take action on items that are not on the agenda. Please do not discuss employee matters which result in disciplinary action. Instead, notify the employee supervisor, the Human Resources Department, or the superintendent. Before we start with the in-person ones, I'm just going to mention the one email that we did get is from Levi Northrup. He did share a Google Doc that did not give access to the account, so I will request access and then share that with the board. So that is our one email public forum submission. The first in-person speaker is Teresa Rodriguez. I can't read the last name, I apologize. Come on up.
Okay. Hello, my name is Teresa Rodriguez Lobato. I'm a cafeteria manager and have work at Piñon. I have worked in the district for 18 years. We are here today with other cafeteria managers. Oh, sorry, I'm a little nervous. I want other cafeteria managers. We are here because we want somebody to have our backs. When they received the stimulus, we were left out of it because we're considered manager, but we can't hire or fire. We just want somebody to listen to our demands. When we have to have a raise, we have to fight for it. And I'm proud of my work, and I'm proud of where I work, and I'm proud of being there with the kids. I'm proud to feeding them. Our job's very important to us. We feed healthy food. During the pandemic, we were there, and we were considered essential workers, but we weren't treated like essential workers because we were left out. And I don't think that's fair to us because we're there for them all the time. We're the ones that had to be there to receive the milk all the time. You know, the girls took turns. And we went on the buses. We had to be there when somebody got there with no mask on and hand them the food because we didn't want to leave the kids without it. Unfortunately, we're tired of being treated that way because we're not essential, that we weren't there. Thank you. I have my other supporters here to help us.
Thank you very much, Ms. Rodriguez Lovato.
Next speaker is Elizabeth Ruiz.
Okay, hi, good evening to all of you. My name is Elizabeth Reese. I have been with the district for 27 years and am the cafeteria manager at Aspen Elementary Magnet School. I am here with my coworkers. If there are no other managers, you can say I am here today on the behalf of all of the Santa Fe Public School managers because we want respect. We want to feel part of the Santa Fe Public District like other employees. We should not have to fight for a stipend, but we did. while other district employees receive theirs automatically, we were forced to demand it. We did win a stipend, but it was less than everyone else's. We had the attention of our bosses for a while. They promised monthly meetings. We have not had a monthly meeting since December. We need to be in the union. We want the same rights, respect, and protection that those who work side by side us have. We do not want to be unjustly disciplined without a way to fight it. We should not suffer in pay or treatment because of favoritism. We do not like being controlled by fear or intimidation. We ask that you recognize our rights to have a union. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Reese.
Sorry. Our next speaker is Yvonne Lopez. I have Norma Gutierrez. Oh, they're just here to support. Okay, okay. Barbara Barrera Lopez.
Hi, board members. My name is Barbara Barrera Lopez. I have been with the district for 27 years. I am a cafeteria manager at Capitol High School. We are here today on behalf of the Santa Fe Public School cafeteria and managers. We are trying to figure out things like our pay scale, the stipends that have went out and we didn't get one, and we had to come and poor superintendent, you know, all our heart goes out to you that you fought and you got us the bonus that you promised, the stipend that we much appreciate it that you are looking. And we just want to know, we don't have a pay scale, we don't have like raises, we don't know what's going on. So we felt like as cafeteria managers, we were left under a rock. Everybody forgot about us. We had to go out and work the COVID. We had to go out and do lots of stuff, and no one thought of us, no one appreciated us, but we were there for the kids because that's our job. And we love what we do, and we said, okay, we have to feed these kids. And we went out there, so we would just like for you guys to really look into us and recognize us and back us up because we have nowhere to go or no one to back us up. So we feel like we have to be part of a union, you know? So, you know, we were considered administrators. They took away the union from us and they told us, okay, you're no longer in the union because you're administrators. But we said, okay, fine. We got a little raise, but now we don't have administrative pay. I work 2 jobs and I'm only at $34,000. You know, I work at Capitol and then I do the after-school program. And, you know, I just want what's right for us because we're the heart of the school and we're the ones that feed the kids and we're there for them in the morning to feed them. We're there for them for lunch and we just love our jobs. So we would appreciate your help if you could either help us get unions or recognize our pay scales or give us a pay table or, you know, and that's why we're here. So much thanks.
Thank you very much, Ms. Barrera Lopez.
And the last speaker I have is Carmela Chavez.
Good afternoon. Hi, Ms. Noble and superintendent and members of the board. Well, like they said, we're here because we have been, I'm sorry, my name is Carmela Chavez, and I've been for the school for 13 years, and I'm an assistant manager at Capitol High School. And the reason we're here tonight is because as managers, we have no union or representation, and we need somebody to be there for us, for our rights. And we as a manager have no representation or union, like I said, and we feel like no one cares about what happens to us. When the layoff happened, because that happened personal to me, I felt alone, like nowhere to go or who to ask what to do, because I just feel like nobody cares. Like I have no job or nothing, and nobody to fight for me, for my rights. And we really love our jobs, like they said, and we're here for the kids. We are happy to come to work and do our part of the kids' education, because we are a big part of the kids' education. We feed them, so they learn. And that's why we're demanding to be represented and to have the same rights as everyone in the district. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chavez.
And that concludes public forum for tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Janarski, and special thanks to all the cafeteria managers for coming and speaking to us tonight. Really appreciate you all coming and sharing your stories and all that you gave to us tonight and all that you give to this district and did through the pandemic. Really, it was so crucial to keep feeding kids, and I think we did that pretty darn well, and know you all played a part in that, so thank you. Is there anyone else who didn't get a chance to sign up for public forum who would like to speak and address the board at this time? Now's the chance. Okay, going once, going twice. We will move on to our union update, and Ms. Mayer, it's a pleasure to see you. Welcome. Thanks for being here.
Hi. Good evening, board members, superintendent, cabinet, audience members. I'm Grace Mayer. I'm the NEA Santa Fe president, and I'm also an art teacher at Milagro Middle School. I want to congratulate our cafeteria managers for their advocating for themselves and for coming to speak publicly about their working conditions. NEA Santa Fe supports our employees' right to participate in the union, and we believe that under PIBA that our managers actually are a part of our bargaining unit, given that there's a distinction between incidental kind of managerial duties and some of the other managerial duties that they don't have. They can hire and fire. They really don't. They can maybe recommend some evaluations, but they primarily perform the same functions as their colleagues or their so-called subordinates who work side by side. So we'll be discussing some of these concerns with the superintendent. I already have raised some concerns so that we can talk with the district's council about those definitions and whether or not we do have the right to claim them under NEA, as we have the other nutrition employees. We believe that the law states that we have them, and they are asking for it. So we want to try to bring them into a position where they feel like they're represented in a more significant way. Although I want you to know that they are really amazing women who have spent years with the district and advocating for students, for the employees that they do serve as managers for, and the community of Santa Fe. So thank you guys, and we are very privileged to have you join our unit. There was some time where there's a lot of confusion, because going back 20 years, there was managers in our unit, and we don't know if we need to work to just regain that status or what that process really entails, but these are some of our first steps, so we look forward to having them join the National Education Association of Santa Fe. So employees and community members are pleased with next year's calendar. The academic calendar and the later start date for workers and for students. We're also pleased that there's innovative ideas in programming and also scheduling being considered. The remote days are an interesting way for us to build on what we've learned and sort of move forward with incorporating technology and online learning and making it, it's a necessary part of our students' learning because as they go on to college or other jobs, those skills are vital to their success. So we know that we have to modernize our delivery instruction of, ways that we deliver instruction, and integrating that is the first step. And I think it's going to prove to be very successful, because it's been successful in our district, and building on last year's success. I think that we do have one-to-one devices. Many of our students in our community don't have the issues of that they do in rural parts of the state, where they don't have the bandwidth and things to have online, but we do. We provided those hotspots and other things, so looking forward to that late date start. And just so you know, August 11th is my birthday, so get to start work on my birthday again. Many teachers and educators attended the Parent Academy workshop for newcomer support for Afghan families on March 25th. I was one of those individuals who listened to our speaker, Mohammed Ismail. He was very informative about the needs of welcoming those families to our community and to our school district. The NEA Santa Fe Executive Board, on behalf of our members, provided each family with a gift card of $50 and also soccer balls for the kids. I heard that they weren't there when I attended the early session, but I heard that the soccer balls went over well, so happy to hear it. Our teachers are always welcoming of any student that arrives in their classroom, and I'm sure that they will have success in whatever classroom and school that they attend, so welcome. I think the last thing is that we have started to meet with the district for negotiations to talk about salaries and other issues, mostly what the legislature passed and how we're going to implement some of those, and a few MOUs, which I think you'll be looking at tonight and approving. So we look forward to those negotiations, and we have work to do, but I think it'll be a little easier since we have some resources from the state. However, we're a little concerned given that not all categories seem to be kind of like impacted in the same way. Like, for instance, our digital learning coaches, we're going to have to address the fact that they're not specifically on that scale that for our teachers, although our counselors are. So those tier bumps, we're going to have to look and address to see how we can improve their salaries and make them equitable and comparable to our teacher salaries, because most of them came from those teaching ranks, and they now have 2 jobs as the digital learning coaches, which I'm sure they love, but it's still it's a little more extensive what their responsibilities are. Currently, we have Vivian Roybal, who's an ESP on our bargaining team, and Jamie Torres, who's a special education teacher as part of our team that meets with the district. And I think that's it on the update. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we are on to Roman numeral number 7, our student board member announcements and follow-up. I'm hoping one or both of you have something.
Awesome. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead, Mr. McGinnis.
Great. So here's an overview of a few of the achievements from Santa Fe High School. Recently, our NJROTC won first place at the state championship and placed 9th in the nation in the all-service national championship in marksmanship. Lucas Blakesley won first place in the math senior category at the New Mexico Highlands University Regional Science Fair and also received a Mu Alpha Theta Award. Angus McGinnis, Armando Martinez Brito, Roman Napi all won third place in the senior computer science category at the New Mexico Highlands University Regional Science Fair. Lucas Blakesley won second place in the computer science and math senior category at the New Mexico State Science Fair at NM Tech. Santa Fe High School's 2 supercomputing challenge teams submitted their final reports yesterday and will be presenting at the Supercomputing Challenge Expo on April 25th. Irene Pierpont and SD Wiebe won Best Bill in the House Chamber at the annual 2022 Youth and Government Conference, where Santa Fe High School students had the opportunity of meeting with Brian Colon, who is our state auditor. Angus McGinnis won his re-election for Attorney General at the Youth and Government Annual Conference and will remain the Attorney General for the 2023 Youth and Government Conference. And several Santa Fe High School students have been selected for the Los Alamos Summer Internship, including Angus McGinnis, who will intern in the Applied Genomics Department, Jack Nation, who will intern in the Nuclear Physics Department, Lucas Blakesley, who will work in the Computer Science Department, and Sammy Verschuer, who will work in the Optics Lab.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney General, and congratulations.
Ms. Ultreras?
Hello. Hello, everyone. I am the student board member representing Capitol High School. The highlights for Capitol High School are we have 59 seniors have been presenting for the bilingual seal. We currently have 73 bilingual seal candidates. Mr. Aaron Gerdner represented Capitol High School as a board member for the NM Association for Career and Technical Education. We are working with SFCC, Santa Fe Community College, to expand dual credit offerings to include our drama program and our business pathway. Mr. Josh Ryan and our employability skills students are making progress on their garden project in one of our courtyards. And Ms. Melody Lopez recently defended her dissertation. On another note, I also wanted to give the board an update on my current projects. For my volunteer opportunity projects, I have gotten in contact with Mr. Jose Villarreal, and I hope to discuss with him further this week on how to find more opportunities and bring them to Santa Fe Public Schools. I'm also volunteering with Community Educators Network to bring a teen portal onto the website, on their website to find these opportunities and make them more accessible to all students in Santa Fe. Another project I have recently begun working on is parent involvement in schools. In short, I want more parents involved in their students' education to motivate students to want to continue their education and pursue careers. My hope with this project is that students will understand that parents will understand that what their students are doing in their classrooms and help their students thrive. I'm currently working with Crystal Ibarra and speaking with principals from our public schools to see how they can engage parents, in their schools. And with this information, I intend to have it shared so we as a community can come together and prosper. And I'm so sorry, I'm hearing what our amazing lunch ladies have to go through really did. It really did touch me in many levels, so. And those are all the announcements for Capitol High School. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And your volunteer opportunity project is so wonderful. And, when you see ways that the board can support you, things that we can all do, please bring them to us, because I certainly can speak for myself in saying that I'm eager to help with whatever you need. Thank you. Okay, moving on to board announcements and follow-up. Are there any board announcements? Dr. Gonzalez?
On Saturday, I am a member of the Secretary's Advisory Commission, and we had a session on Saturday. And it's made up of parents, students, teachers, and I'm in the civic group. And the question that they had for us, there was probably 50 people there. And, because that was also PED people were there. And they said, what is the purpose of high school today? So that was kind of the focus of the day. And we looked at, they talked about work-based learning, graduation capstones, and, went into detail about them. Graduation requirements, and of course, career and technical education. So it was a really beneficial day. And I think the secretary got a lot of good information to take back.
Sounds wonderful. Thank you. Very glad you're doing that. Any other board announcements and follow-up?
Madam President,
Go
I
ahead.
just wanted to take a moment to, I attended the Art Smart fundraiser last Friday night at the rail yard with the 5th grade art from the plates from all the different schools, and it was just another highlight of our art programs. Incredible work, and such a great fundraiser for this important group that supports our education in the schools. So, highly recommends.
Thank you. Other board announcements and follow-up? That leaves you and me, Board Member Anderson. Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. Superintendent announcements and follow-up comes next. Mr. Chavez.
Yeah, thank you, Board President Noble, members of the board. A couple of announcements. Mr. McGinnis took one of mine, ROTC, so I just scratched that off. Thank you for doing such a great job. My first one's on COVID, the standing announcement. As you know, the Public Education Department has lifted a few of the requirements. One of the ones is testing program has been lifted for students. Of course, bell covers on the wind instruments has also been lifted. Non-essential visitors, assemblies, and field trips are allowed by Public Education Department. We also adopted that once it was lifted and that new toolkit was published. We are looking at, right now in our schools, less than 1% positivity rate within our schools, and it's a great sign because when it was high, my phone would not stop as I was notified on every positive case throughout the district, staff or students. So it's a great sign, and we think, with Ms. Casals here, she can verify that even some of your schools don't have a positive case for a week. So it looks very promising. One quick update, we will be looking at changing our testing contractor over the next few weeks. We'll bring that back as a future announcement to identify who that vendor is going to be. As Ms. Grace Mayer mentioned, our 2022-23 calendar was released last week. Students are returning on August 17th. Staff will be returning on August 11th, and for those that didn't hear, that is President Mayer's birthday. Students have 3 days off for Thanksgiving. Just some quick highlights. Winter break will be 2 weeks, starting on the 19th of December, returning on the 4th of January. Spring break, and we did listen to community feedback on this, was pushed back a week, and it will be the 20th through the 24th, following the closing of the legislative session, which is 60 days next calendar year. And school ends on Wednesday, May 24th. We have a few other announcements as we'll go through here. Couple of important ones so that everybody understands. For FY23, or next school year, the unit value has increased, and it's increased by $587.92, which is just over a 12% increase over this final unit value for the current school year. We're currently attending the spring budget workshop, which helps create budgets for next school year. This is really for hopefully the public, those in the audience, and our school board members to listen to. We're having our inaugural Santa Fe Public Schools golf tournament, and so I'm pitching it over here to the board. We are looking for sponsors. Community can also donate prizes for those that are participating, And it's a way for us to raise funds for appreciation gifts to staff, students, senior banners, retiree dinners, things that we need to raise funding for to offer to our students and staff and show them that we do appreciate you guys. So that is May 1st. You can contact 610 if you want to advertise, sponsor, or even participate in the golf tournament. Glad to announce iCivics EAD District Fellowship. Santa Fe Public Schools has been selected as one of 3 partner districts for iCivics EAD District Teacher Fellowship. iCivics, along with Educating for American Democracy, which is EAD, will be working with 6 teachers from each district to develop place-based units on early U.S. history that merge inquiry and project-based learning. Teachers will be provided a $4,000 stipend for those that want to participate. And lastly, we did have a presentation, if you remember, on Anna Age 8 survey early on in this academic year. We'll be releasing the survey on April 8th, so I wanted to make that announcement here to our community, and we appreciate the board and Dr. Catherine Courtney on her presentation, and we're hoping to really get that out widely so everybody can participate. And President Noble, that concludes my board updates.
Thank you very much, Superintendent. Any questions from the board on any of the superintendent's updates? Yes, go ahead, Board Member Anderson.
Thank you. Board President Noble, members of the board, and Superintendent. Superintendent, do you mind repeating the day that the Anna Age 8 report will be released?
The survey goes out tomorrow.
The survey goes out tomorrow.
Correct.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I do actually have a question. Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Chavez, can you just outline a little bit? You said the testing program, no, not the contractor, the part at the beginning. One of the state requirements was changing in regard to testing. Can you review that?
Yes,
what that is?
absolutely. Board President Noble, Secretary Bozay, members of the board. Initially, the state had required us to voluntarily have 25% of students participate in surveillance testing. Now they have lifted that requirement and no longer requiring any type of student volunteer testing program. Yep.
Okay, seeing no other questions on the superintendent's announcements, and just to say we can all work to share on social media, I know we do, but get the word out about the Anna Age 8 survey, of course. Okay, we will move on to our presentations. We start with our 2022 legislative session review. I guess I'll pass it to you, Superintendent, but I can see why Ms. Siegel's here.
Yes, thank you, Board President, members of the board. With us tonight is our Santa Fe Public School lobbyist, Linda Siegel.
Thank you, Madam President, Superintendent, board members. Happy to be here tonight in person. This is your first in-person meeting, right?
It is,
Oh,
yes.
my gosh, it's so exciting. And, you know, the legislature this time was in person, pretty much. The Senate was totally in person. The House had some options, but it was a very different environment. Of course, in order to even get in the building, everybody had to have their vaccination and booster proof, document proof. Everybody had to wear a mask, and we had to go through metal detectors. So every day, the same people who came in, which were mostly lobbyists, there were very few of the public who came in, we had to prove. Finally, after about 15 days, they would just go, okay, go on. I've seen your vaccination form now. So it was a good session. It was the 30-day session where the governor sets the bills. The governor has to give a message saying she wants to hear a piece of legislation that is not financial. So there were about 502 bills introduced, but many of them did not have messages. And legislators like to do that. They want to let people know that in the next 60-day session they're going to introduce this bill, so they go ahead and have a bill drafted and introduced knowing that they're not going to get a message. But 64 bills actually passed, and the governor signed 57 of them. And I'll talk about the one she vetoed in a minute, which was why we had to have a special session. So of those 502 bills, 57 of them were related to education. But of course, the vast majority of those were not. They were either money bills, which were going nowhere, or they were bills that the governor hadn't given a message on. So she vetoed those 7 bills, and one of the bills she vetoed was what's called the junior bill. And there's a House Bill 2, as you all know, and that's the main budget for the state. And then over the last years, even once in Governor Martinez's administration, the Senate and the House put together what they call these House Bill 2 junior bills. And they give each legislator a little pot of money. Like this year, it was $600,000 for the senators. Each senator got was it 6 or 3? 300,000 maybe. Yeah, 300,000, and then the House got 187,000. So the legislators each get that pot of money, and they get to say within certain parameters, I want this allocated for X. So mostly what got money were existing programs, like one of my clients is the Coalition Against Domestic Violence. So many of those programs got some money, and there was homeless money, and there was sexual assault money, and there were a host of other studies created, like a study continuing the efforts on universal health care and looking at insurance policies. So everybody got what they felt their constituents wanted, because constituents go to the legislator and say, well, you know, I really need this in my program or whatever. So that bill passed unanimously in the House and the Senate. And then towards the end of the period of time for vetoing bills, once the session ends, the governor has 20 days to sign or veto bills. And so she vetoed that bill towards the end of her time, and everybody went ballistic because all these programs were counting on this money. You know you're going to get money, so you've already got it in the bank and start planning to spend it. So there was a threat of a veto override, and that would not be good. And then, of course, all the gas prices were going up and everything. So the governor did call that special session, which just happened this week, and it went very smoothly. There were some tweaks made to that junior bill, just clarifying where money would go and that sort of thing. And that passed, and I'm sure the governor will sign it. And also, you've probably heard that all of us will be getting a rebate of $500 for an individual, $1,000 for a family, in 2 different checks. One before the fiscal year ends, June 30th, and then the next one in the fall. So that's what happened at the special session. But the budget that was passed during the regular session, it was nice to be working with knowing that there is money for expansion. And as you know, education got $423 million new dollars, and that's why the SEG is up so much. There were, increases in transportation and insurance, I believe, too, but the bulk of that money is going to go to the school districts to do what you do. So that is, hopefully you all are happy about that SEG increase. And of course, with that came, there were several significant bills, and you all know what they are. The increase in teacher salaries to 50, 60, 70. And that had a separate appropriation That's not included in the SEG. Or do they roll that in? They don't roll, they do roll that in? Okay, so they rolled that in. And so it's a 7% across the board increase. And then there was that incentive to do K-5 plus or extended learning, and instead of a 7% raise, we get a 10% raise. I'm sure it makes it sort of confusing for the finance departments to do all that. But, and then the increase of $15 as your minimum salary for people. So that was, it was a good session for that. Many areas got increases. The entire budget for the state is now $8.5 billion, which is the highest, obviously, that we've ever had. And it's a 14% increase from the last year's budget, or the budget that we're currently in. And we have the largest reserves that we've ever had, about 30%, which is around $2.6 billion. I don't know if we've ever had, maybe we've had $1 billion in a good year for reserves. So this is pretty incredible, and it's pretty fiscally conservative to have a 30% reserve so that we can handle those times which seem very cyclical of, you know, we're going really well, and then something happens and gas prices plunge, oil plunges, and the state's in trouble. And that, we all have to be grateful, despite the problems that go with being funded in a state by gas and oil. It is so important to us. And we would not be today with this good a budget, with this much increase for education, were it not for the price of a barrel of oil being around $100, even though this budget was figured at gas and oil being $65 a barrel. So that makes all that extra money come into the reserves. So the hot bills, obviously, as I said, the teacher salary increase, the salary parity for Native American culturally appropriate instructors, creating that in statute. That went back and forth, particularly in the Senate, with people being concerned, that senators being concerned that they would be making too much money and not working full time. And of course, that was explained that it's proportional to how much a person works. So that was a good one. The returning to work for the ERA, or is it ERB? ERB, sorry. That if you've been out for at least 90 days, then you can come back as a teacher for up to 36 months. So hopefully that will help you all some. Yeah, yeah. Oh, the ERA, ERB, I don't know why I kept typing that. Also, the ERB contribution rates increased, and I know that was supposed to be in the budget, of course, being on the community college board. I know they never give us enough money to cover the mandates, and this is another mandate where the schools now have to pay more to the Educational Retirement Fund, and it goes up to the 17.15 this year and then goes up next year. So that's pretty much it. The capital outlay, every senator got $3.2 million for capital outlay. Every House member got $1.6 million. It was sort of like, it's just like the junior bill. And you get to decide who you're going to give money to and what projects you're going to give money to. And of course, our legislators in the district have been generous. You know, they have so many, they have everybody asking them for money. So you have the city, the county, the schools, the community college, all these other entities that we often support nonprofit capital outlay, which it goes through the city or the county. So this year, the main fund was for the infotech for $350,000, and then $50,000 for the HVAC upgrade at one of the schools, I guess. And that was pretty comfortable. That total $400,000. The community college, that was, yeah, $400,000. The community college got $350,000. The city did pretty well. They got $1.1 million for the Midtown. I sure hope we do something with that soon, something useful. So overall, I think it was a pretty good session, and education really benefited. I know it's never enough, but part of the thing with, you know, we tell the legislators, look, you're not giving us enough money to meet the expenses of your mandates. And they just go, well, take it from your cash balances. I heard that several times, take it from your cash balances. And for the older ones who've been there a while, I remind them, well, you did take $50,000 of our cash balances a few years ago. So, but it's the way it is. I mean, at the college, we only get 40% of our of the money to pay for salaries and all for our mandates. And I'm not sure what your percentage is, but it's never enough. And I think it would be, you know, in Santa Fe, we have some new legislators. We have Linda Serrato, who's a new rep, Tara Lujan, who's a new rep. And I think it's going to be advantageous now that we can actually meet with people, do some more education of our new people so that they understand the needs of the schools. And you have 3 legislators that actually have young children. Linda Serrato and Tara Lujan and Matt McQueen. And I think some of them are school age, so it will be helpful to do some more education with them. And I know the superintendent and I spoke when he started, and it was like, I want you to meet every legislator and talk to them, but that has not been able to happen. So I think now we'll be able to do that.
May I add a couple things, President Noble?
Please.
So thank you, Linda, for this. And we had been in contact during the session multiple times on raises, some of the things we've read in House Bill 2, Senate Bill 1. And so we've done a great job of communicating, and she's done a great job of advocating for us. Some of the things I just want to mention, I think there was a key word left out. I want to make sure that we hear it, and it's an average of 7%.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So I want to make sure that's very clear. There's about 4 things that are required once House Bill 2 was signed, and Senate Bill 1, was the new minimums for teachers and principals, which went up. Also, the $15 an hour for anyone below that. And also, what's required is 3% for all district or all employees of the district. And then we start getting into anything above and beyond. And that's what President Mayor and I have been talking about for many weeks and months now about that. And we're going over salary tables and pay adjustments. So there's a lot of work to be done. But, you know, it's a great partnership with the NEA Santa Fe and our team that's negotiating.
Thank you, Superintendent. Dr. Gonzalez.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Chavez. One thing that I think is important, it's not necessarily for the schools, but I think the New Mexico Opportunity Scholarship is really important for students. At the session on Saturday, I asked the high school students what they thought of that. And one of the students said that about 2 weeks before it was passed, the teacher asked this class how many students were going to go on to college or something after high school. And about 2 or 3 students raised their hand. And then after this was passed and signed, every student raised their hand. It's for trade schools, it's for community colleges, and it's for higher, universities. So it's a real opportunity.
And part-time. That's the great thing. Yes, you can take is a minimum of 6 hours and go at night or whatever.
Thank you. Board Member Anderson.
Thank you so much, Board President Noble, Superintendent, members of the board. Just to piggyback on that, I want to add that the Opportunity Scholarship is also available for adults. So any district employees who want to go back to school and earn licensure will be able to do that free of cost, which is really exciting.
And they could come to Santa Fe Community College.
And does the math work out on that for Santa Fe Community College?
What, Madam President, what do you mean?
I basically
Oh.
mean, you know, are the scholarships enough to cover the realistic costs?
Of
and
course
to-
not. Tuition is never enough to cover costs. That's why we have the mill levy, as you do.
Other questions for Ms. Siegel? I had a couple, just to make sure that we're all clear on things that are out there. We were not held harmless on enrollment numbers, correct?
No.
Okay, so that's a big factor in our budget, in that we will be basing the 2023 budget on FY22, this year's enrollment numbers, which is, of course, part of the reason it never quite adds up, as those enrollment numbers. And you have up there that the education budget is approximately 45% of the total state budget. Do you have any history on that in your mind as to where it's been in times past?
Yes, Madam President, board member, superintendent. When I first started lobbying quite a few years ago, I think we were almost at 50%. Dr. Gonzalez may remember this. Of course, the state was, the total state budget was much smaller. So we have hovered around 40 to 45% for years. And there has been conversations in the past, oh, we should be 50% of the budget. Well, I think it's important what the dollar amount is, and that in our good times keeps increasing. So we're in the range that we've been in for quite a while, of the 45% range.
Okay, thank you. I do recall, and I bring that up because our previous superintendent, Dr. Veronica Garcia, at some point talked about the proportion and how even those small percentage numbers in terms of what is spent out there seem to make a difference when we're, you know, 5% below 50 now, and that sort of thing. But certainly it is a good time to have some money, and we anticipate being able to return some to our staff and people who have worked so hard. And I think this is one of those all things are true moments. It is great to have funding and to have increased funding in a lot of important areas, and great work done by our legislature. And it won't be enough, and it won't be enough to heal all of the scars from the pandemic and to truly get everything into the pay tables that we would like, to retain and appreciate our most experienced teachers and many other workers. So, you know, it is really good news all around, and as Ms. Siegel said, it's still sort of never enough, and it will feel, I think, that way this year, even though there's a lot of good news in it. It has been a rough couple years, there's no question about it, and personally, I am looking down the barrel of the 6th school budget that, as a board member, and really am just incredibly clear that when you start looking at all of the things that you want to do, and, you know, really are the right things to do for the educational system, for the teaching and learning that needs to happen with students in the classrooms, with teachers and the staff that support them in doing that, it is just not enough. So
anyway, we do really appreciate the work done by our legislature this year, and that we have a very education-friendly group in the Roundhouse and in the governor's office, and at the same time, wish we could do more. So, thank you very much, Ms. Siegel. Appreciate you being here.
Madam President.
Yeah, go ahead, Secretary.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Chavez. I was trying to Google quickly, but didn't find an answer. So I was wondering if maybe Ms. Siegel knew how that percentage of the state budget spent on education compares to other states.
Madam President, board members, superintendent, I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
later.
I think we have an unusual funding of education in New Mexico because the legislature and the state funds it, and in many states, it comes out of property taxes or comes out of other buckets of money. So it might not even be, I don't know, appropriate comparison.
Right. That makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks very much. Okay, moving to our next presentation, we have, and just to say, student board members, anytime you want questions, jump in here. It's so exciting to not have to scan Zoom. Presentation, our second presentation is beginning and middle of year assessment results, accelerated learning and learning loss, enriched programming / student data assessment review. That's a heck of a title. Superintendent.
Thank you, Board President. I guess we could have made it a little shorter.
Yes.
With us tonight is Deputy Superintendent Vanessa Romero for Teaching and Learning. I also want to recognize the assistant superintendents who worked on this project as well, Mr. Carl Morano, Kathy Casals, and Michael Hagley, and also Dr. Suchint Sarangarm, who is our Chief Assessment and Learning Officer. So I would like to hand it over, but first, I just want to walk us through this presentation. We're really trying to effort and leverage not only ESSER funding that we've received, but also community partnership. So what we're going to do tonight is show you some data, beginning of the year, middle of the year, and some of our plans for next school year. So we want to walk you through this slide presentation tonight, and both Deputy Superintendent Romero and I will tag team on this. So Deputy Superintendent Romero.
Thank you, President Noble, members of the board, Superintendent Chavez. As Superintendent Chavez said, the focus of this is to look at current assessment, but next slide. What we wanted to do is provide just a timeline of pre and post-pandemic data. And so in 2018-19, we administered the state assessment, the PARC assessment, which is known as the Partnership for Assessment for College and Careers. And that was a state assessment. So we offered that to our students in 2018-2019. Our interim or our formative assessments in-house were the MAPS, which is referred to as the Measures for Student Success Achievement. So those are in-house assessments to see how our students are doing in math and reading and science. We administered that in 2018-19, and then in 2019-2020, total shutdown. So we did not offer any state assessments to any of our children in New Mexico, but we did have our beginning and middle of year assessments using, once again, the MAPS assessment. So we had those in-house assessments right before all schools shut down. And then last school year, the state left it up to districts to decide if they wanted to provide a state assessment. And we had, so we reached out to our families, we sent out surveys and asked who wanted to participate in the state assessment, and we had less than 10% of our students volunteer. And this year, we will be focusing on our formative assessments, which we're using in-house to monitor our student growth. And so right now, we have beginning of the year and middle of the year data, and then at the end of the year, we will take the state assessment. I do want you to recognize that these are different assessments. We've gone from PARC to a new assessment called IMSA or IMASA. So I just want you to recognize that the state assessment has changed, and so has our formative in-house assessments.
And I just want to add, it's very important that we understand that, because we're not comparing data from the same tests.
But we're hoping, looking at the standards, we can see some progress in our student learning. Next slide. So this is just a visual of the timeline that I just shared with you. We have our park and our maps prior to COVID. In the center, those bars, you'll notice that those are just our interim assessments, our in-house assessments, and no state assessment because we had less than 10% of our students participate. So you do not see an orange bar in the center. And then at the end, this is focusing on our in-house assessments for the school year, the beginning of the year, and our middle of the year data. And according to Dr. Sarangarm, he is projecting that our end-of-year assessment, 55% of our students will be proficient in reading. And I do want to say that's great for our district, and if you recall, our strategic plan of 2023 was that 60% of our children would be proficient in reading. So we're on target for meeting that goal in our strategic plan of 60%. Next slide. This is our math achievement. So it was our park data prior to COVID. Last year, our interim assessments. And this year, beginning of year, our in-house assessments, 5% of our students were proficient district-wide in math. Middle of year, we've jumped to 12. The state average is also extremely low, and we know that we need to work on math as a state. And we'll be sharing later on with you some things that we're doing now and how we're addressing how we're teaching math. Dr. Sarangarm does believe that we will be projecting at the end of the year a 20% proficiency rate in math, which is comparable to the state. Next slide. This is just another visual of our interim assessment this year for reading. It is hard to read because on the left-hand side you have the beginning, and then on the right-hand side, middle of the year. So I just do want to point out that there is growth in reading. In third grade, the beginning of the year, it was 54%. We've jumped to 56. Grade 4 from 52 to 60%. Grade 5, 54 to 56. And if you look at our sixth grade, it has decreased a little bit, but I want you to recognize that we are moving students up from the level 1 students needing support and pushing those students to nearing proficiency. So we are moving kids, so we want to celebrate that.
Yeah, I want to add, if you really look at that orange number, for beginning of the year, it's much larger than the numbers on the right. And our goal is to move them from, we'll just use the colors, from orange to blue and then blue to green. So it shows movement of our students, at all grade levels. And orange is need support, if you can't see it up there. Blue is near target, and green is on target. So we're making progress. We want to move as many students from orange to blue and then from blue on to green.
And I do want to stress that as well. Yes, we want our students to be proficient, but at the same time, we want to see all of our kids moving and showing growth. Next slide. This is language usage. So this is another assessment that we give kids, and this is for writing. So it looks at conventions, it looks at how kids are analyzing narrative or informational texts, looking at dialogue and arguments in writing. So I'm super proud, or we are super proud of this data. I think this is the area of our largest strength. So if you can see in grade 3, we jumped from 36% to 51. Grade 4, 40 to 47. And would you like me to go through each grade level, or can you? Okay, I'll let you take a minute to look at that. But super, super exciting in our language usage. Next slide. And this is our in-house assessment again, but in math. I do want to point out that all grades have positive gains between 3 and 8%. And we are moving students out of need support, the orange, into nearing the target or nearing proficiency.
Deputy Superintendent, did you want to talk a little bit about our new curriculum for middle school?
Sure. So last year, we had it was an adoption year for math, and we purchased Savas for our K through 5. We also purchased, totally blanked, but our math program for ST Math, which is an intervention for our elementary students. We purchased new algebra, geometry, and math curriculum for our high schools. And all of our curriculum is online, so our students have access to online, and they have the books to go with their math. So this is our second year with our math program, and it is showing gains, little gains, but we're making progress. And our high school students who are struggling in math, we're offering them a double dose of math. So if they're struggling in algebra, there's also the ALEX intervention, so they're getting a double dose of math. And later on, we'll talk about some programs that we're utilizing. Next slide. And then this is just high level again, district data, third grade, 56 proficiency rate in reading. I won't read them. One thing I do want to celebrate is our 7th grade, a 10% gain, or a 5% gain in math, but we've doubled from the beginning to the middle of the year. Next slide. And now I wanted to focus on schools. So this is by school site. These are just some highlights with really good gains in reading. So we have Amy Bill with a 9% increase in the number of students proficient or on target. Cesar Chavez, Kearney, Nava, Ramirez Thomas. And those are the gains from the beginning of the year to middle of the year in reading. Next slide. And then these are our gains in language usage from the beginning to the middle of the year. Athalaya, Gonzalez, Kearney again, Milagro with the 16% increase. Yeah, I think that was the largest gain in language usage. Nino Otero also had 16%, and once again, Ramirez Thomas. And then these are our highlights in math. Athalaya with a 14% increase, Carlos Gilbert, Eldorado with 14%, Mandela 11, Wood Gormley 18. And now Superintendent Chavez will talk about some of the things we're doing to recover from the pandemic.
Right. Thank you, Deputy Superintendent Romero. And as you can see, we want to take you through a few slides to walk you and talk to you about what we're doing to recover from the pandemic. And ultimately, our goal is to improve student outcomes, right? And that should be all of our goal. So we want to ensure that kids are always receiving grade level instruction. And what we mean by that is this is how we're going to do it through accelerated learning. And what Deputy Superintendent Romero and her team is leading with standards-based instruction and grading. So we are going to utilize that as far as accelerated learning and making sure everyone has grade level content. Now we understand not everyone or every student's on grade level, so that's when our teachers will differentiate instruction to meet them at that point. But our goal is for grade level instruction to accelerate learning. Our newcomer immersion program is currently being developed for this summer with our executive, Lisa Vigil, Director of Language and Culture Department, along with Deputy Superintendent Romero and her team. And what we saw is we have over 275 newcomers to the district. And what we mean by that is newcomers from different countries, foreign languages, and we identified that they were missing a lot of instructional time during the school year. So over the summer, we're going to develop an immersion program that both combines language and also some fun activities in the afternoon. So that's another way that we're going to accelerate learning for this group, so when they enter next school year, they're ahead of where they would have been if they didn't have this newcomer immersion program. We're also offering Jumpstart. We've heard a lot of great feedback from our high school parents that they loved Jumpstart because it did give them the opportunity to get to know staff, other students, the facilities, and became more familiar with what's going on campus. We also want to, and it's down below, but I'm going to add it to accelerated learning as well. We had math camp last summer, if you remember, at Capitol High School. A lot of great reviews from it. We had roughly 30 to 32 students. We're hoping to expand that and double. And so not only does that address learning loss, but it also helps with accelerated learning in the content area of math or Algebra 1. Moving on, and how are we going to address learning loss that we keep hearing about? Well, we've done it in many ways. Santa Fe Public School has provided math, and Deputy Superintendent Romero has mentioned it. Alex was part of it. Reading framework, 30-minute intervention built in the daily school schedule. We just mentioned math camp. Credit recovery is being offered for our high school students. Summer programming is something new that we're going to start, and what we want to do is partner and leverage our community to really help us with that. We understand our staff is exhausted, they're tired, they're stretched thin, so rather than relying on them to do that, we want to have a community partnership meeting, and that is going to take place next Monday. I'll talk a little bit more about that as we move on. But again, we have also, to address learning loss, provide tutoring opportunities. We have near-peer tutoring that also allows high school age students to provide that service for younger students. We also have online tutoring for those that are at home or maybe in quarantine or have COVID. So we're providing plenty of opportunities for students to have that extra support to address learning loss. Next slide, Cody. As I previously mentioned, just something, another way to leverage our ESSER funding and our partnerships with our community. On April 11th, we are going to have a meeting, kind of a get to know our community partners meeting, and how we can do a better job of working with one another. We have currently 15 community partners scheduled. Many more have reached out, so we may have a second day. We've given them a short amount of time to really introduce themselves, see how we can partner, and also leverage what they're offering and how we can support them through ESSER, providing a facility for them to use, and also extending possibly the seats that are currently taking place as far as programming, so we can expand it. What we want to do is provide our students, Santa Fe Public Schools students, the opportunity to participate in enriched activities. And a way to do that without asking our staff to come back during the summer is partnering with our communities. And again, it leads right into that summer enrichment programming and how we want to expand it. And again, it's community partnerships. I've talked to President Grace Mayer about this as well, and we've had a couple of teachers reach out to us that they would like to participate in this and offer, it could be guitar. As we were at the Art Smart Gala as well, that band and those band teachers said they would love to put something on like this. And so it's a way to also invest in what is important to our students, their interests, and it allows them to have enrichment during the summertime when typically they didn't have that. A lot of it's staff-led programs. Some of the individuals that want to participate in this programming can do so. And then it really does lead into building a menu of options for our school principals to utilize next school year. What we heard this year, we had to provide after-school programming, enrichment for our students, but a lot of our principals didn't know who to contact, what community partners were out there. So we're going to do the legwork for them on Monday, build a menu of options so next school year our principals can utilize our community partners to provide enriched activities after school, and we do not have to rely on our staff not only to teach during the school year, but to provide these enriched activities to meet the requirements of ESSER. So we're very excited about developing this menu of options out and also building professional development into the school week. We've been discussing this with the union, with our team. One thing we've heard is more professional development time, and how we're going to do that is build that into the school day. So that is another way to provide additional time for our staff to meet, plan, develop lessons, but work together during the school day. So we're going to continue to work with our union during negotiations to build out PD during the school week. And that concludes our presentations and and we stand for questions.
Thank you very much. Did I see a hand for a question? Yes, Board Member Anderson.
Thank you, Board President Noble. I just had a question. Are the reading and writing assessments offered only in English, or are they also offered in other languages?
We have, the reading is offered in Spanish, and the math is also, and then they have translations for the language. And I would say we do need new assessments that are really authentic for our ELs.
Agreed. That's been a conversation we've had even at the state level.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Chavez, can one of you speak to how grade level instruction will be differentiated just a little bit more in the future?
So I think with standards-based grading, the idea is that every kid, regardless if they're ELs, if they're special education, I think this is what you're asking, that they're provided grade level instruction. And then from there, we need to build into our daily schedule those time for small group instruction to meet the kids where they're at and target the skill. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, is that gonna be done with the classroom teacher? Are there?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So right now, we have a reading framework, and the whole idea is that there's a mini lesson that's based on grade level standard, but then you're providing like an intervention time, 30 minutes, or you're pulling up small groups for reading. And so we've had that reading framework for, gosh, I want to say 3 years. We're hoping this framework translates into math. We've had PD around it, but the idea is 80% of our instruction should be at grade level, and then we're providing 20% of the time to hit targeted skills.
Okay.
And I just want to add, what we're doing is trying to build capacity within each site. So our school leaders are going to be the leaders in that, and building instructional leaders at each school. And so they're doing the training, they're collaborating with their team members. And so it's not, coming from the top down, it's really building within what they have. And those individuals who have participated have done so on a voluntary basis. And so they're highly invested in this. I think it's going to go a long way. Our principals are doing an amazing job of being instructional leaders and building capacity within their own staff.
And I do want to add, so the whole idea is that by 23, 24, we are standards-based grading. So right now, we're focused on standards-based instruction. Next school year, and it was completely up to school sites to decide if they wanted to move forward and fully implement standards-based grading next year. We have about 13 schools. K-8s, high schools are going to take a little more time. They wanted more time, but we have 3 different pathways. So we have about 13 schools that are going to fully jump into standards-based grading next year. We have, if you want it, path 2, there's about, I want to say 10 schools that they want more support in looking at standards and how do we grade. And then we have several schools that decided we just want more work and support in developing our master schedules, how to meet as grade level teams and look at content. So we're super excited. There's 13 schools that are going to fully implement standards-based grading next year. I also want to thank Kathy and, Mrs. Casaus, Mr. Morano, and Mr. Hagley, because part of the questions are, how does this look in Power School, and are kids going to be eligible for sports, or how do they get into colleges? And they've come together and they have a task force, and they're looking at how to convert if you get a 1 or a 2 or a 3 or a 4, and how do you convert that score or scale into a GPA so that it doesn't, kids can still be eligible for sports or colleges.
We're differentiating our implementation.
Yes.
Right, so we're meeting the schools where they're at.
Right.
I also want to say that they've done a great job of reaching out with partnerships of other districts that have done this. And we understand that we'll have to also educate our parents and community. So we're also preparing that so we can really educate everyone that's going to be involved in this. And we always tend to say students and parents, but it's much larger, right? It's our community. So we do plan on educating and having forums for them as well.
And some of those forums start next week at like El Camino, because they decided that they're going to go standards-based grading next year, and a few other schools. So we're super excited about that. I don't know if there's any more questions around standards-based grading or instruction.
Other questions?
I have a couple. Let's see if I can put them in a good sequence. How do we, there's sort of general, like, I suppose, questions, high-level questions, and so forgive me if I'm veering us from the amazing detail in this presentation. How do we tie with community partners the summer enrichment and after-school programming options to our curriculum and to that sort of grade level instruction? How, I guess I'm wondering how that works, and just to say that idea, as you know, Superintendent, makes my heart sing. It makes me so very happy because I think we have a lot of incredible resources in this community. It is a community building exercise. It is sort of the idea of how community schools should work. There's lots of things that weave into this, but how do we maintain sort of that educational standard and educational lens with community partners in those partnerships?
Well, that's a great question. Thank you, President Noble, members of the board. That takes place on Monday, and that's some of the questions we'll be asking our partners. For example, the summer immersion program, we're going to tie it to 21st century because what that does for that program is allows them something to eat, right? And they have that instruction as well in the afternoon. So we're going to look at tying it with current programming, but it does, a lot of the work's going to take place on Monday with the questioning of our community partners and how it fits in with not only the curriculum, our framework, but also our expectations. So I think it's going to be something great, and I hope we do a great job of it. And a lot of our partners are very, very interested to come out and just say hello, this is who we are, and this is what we can offer. So we have some vetting to do on Monday. We have about 8 of my team members on this committee, Deputy Superintendent Romero, of course, Dr. Neil Weaver, Deputy Superintendent Wagner, and some others on the team that we're going to be part of that committee to vet them, see how it works within Santa Fe Public Schools and how we can partner.
And also people from curriculum and instruction to ensure that we are incorporating the standards in some of those projects.
That's great. And, you know, just to say out loud, there will probably be a learning curve for everyone. So yeah, and there may be some capacity building and some flexibility needed on everybody's part to walk through that together, but it's so worthwhile. So, and I guess my other 2 questions, of course, progress is by far the most important thing, and it is great to see the progress that we're making. I feel I do sort of need to ask, why are our math proficiency levels so low? Do we know?
President Noble, this is statewide.
Yeah.
It is statewide. I think personally, and from seeing classrooms and teachers, I think we're very good at teaching procedural and factual and, multiplication facts, addition, subtraction. I think what we need to continue to focus on is how does a kid attack a multi-step word problem? It's the application piece of math that we really need to focus on. Personally, I think that's what we need to work on.
And I want to add, with the adoption of our new curriculum, we're hoping to make progress in it.
Yeah, the materials that we have is application and looking at multi-step word problems and attacking that. But I think that's what we need to focus on.
And it's part of offering that summer camp at Capitol. And so if we can expand and use that as a model, then we can trickle down into the lower grades and provide that opportunity for students.
So I think I did get the sequence right. And my last question is sort of honestly related even to the math proficiency, but also more general, which is, where is project-based learning in all of that? And I love standards-based instruction and standards-based grading. And we, not that long ago, talked a lot about project-based learning, and it seems to be, particularly maybe with something like math, but a way to increase the relevance, which of course does increase engagement. And I mean, honestly, doing math in the sort of, in a void in the ether
Right.
is terribly boring for most of us. But when it matters to something you're doing or building or, you know, trying to make happen, it's different. So how do we think about project-based learning, and are we working to increase the relevance factor as we make these changes?
President Noble, it goes hand in hand with standards-based teaching and learning and grading. And we do see it in some of our schools. I think we could do a better job at building that in every subject area, especially math. We see it a lot in science and social studies. We don't see it very much in reading and math, and so that is something that we can work on, although there are schools that can do it in every subject area, but it would be nice to make sure that it's happening at every site. But yes, it's typically in science and social studies, and then you don't see it in reading or math.
And of course, there can be a lot of math and reading
Right.
in science and
Right.
social studies.
Very true.
Ask Linda Siegel how good her arithmetic is when she's looking at the votes in the legislature or what have you. And is that still something we support sort of actively for instruction, figuring out how to embed standards in project-based learning?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you very much. Other questions? Yeah, sorry, we'll go to Board Member Anderson first and then Mr. McGinnis.
Board President Noble, would you like to go to Mr. McGinnis first? No. Okay.
I saw you first.
Board President Noble, Superintendent, members of the board, how do, you mentioned with project-based learning that some schools are implementing it in lots of different places and some schools are not. How do those schools work together to get things out of those silos?
I think part of it is the time and professional development to get school sites together, and we have seen it this year for the first time, and that's really exciting. We've had Chaparral, EJ Martinez, and Nava working together, but we do need to provide more options, and I do believe, now we have Google, and we could have virtual professional learning communities between grade levels. One thing I do want to add, we have capstone projects for some of our graduates that are struggling, and part of that work is the teachers are working with kids on projects that are relevant to them, and we're incorporating the standards in that learning. So it is happening there, and then of course we also have our career pathways, and students are in culinary or they're in the medical field, and of course they're incorporating some of those standards. It's not necessarily project-based learning, but it's incorporating the standards in career.
And Board Member Anderson, we heard from schools, especially the smaller schools, that they didn't have anybody to collaborate, so they gave them a sister school or a cluster to really start that work.
Great, thank
But
you.
you're right, we do need to create more time for professional development.
Sure.
Mr. McGinnis.
Hello. So my first question was, why are we using the ALEX and ST math programs in particular, and if we've reached out to our community? I know the Santa Fe Alliance for Science and a few of those retired LANL people are more than willing to donate their time to help bolster our STEM programs in our schools, and I was wondering if we've done any reach out with them.
We do, we partner with them, and so they are working in our schools and they're tutoring. And then ALEX and ST Math are intervention programs that add additional support in the classroom for all kids. Where the learning, or the Science for Learning Alliance, it's more tutoring and helping individual students. These programs are research-based and they'll help a group of students.
And then my second question was, I know in Santa Fe High School in particular that one of the things that really makes their AP Science department so strong is their use of the POGLE books, or the Project-Oriented Guided Inquiry Learning. And I was wondering if we've attempted to implement that other places, or if that's just isolated at Santa Fe High.
I would have to say, I think it is just at Santa Fe High. I don't believe it's at Capitol. We do have inquiry-based science kits in all of our elementary schools, and that's in collaboration with the LANL Foundation. So our teachers get 3 kits a year based on the grade level and the science standards. So it is inquiry-based. It's lots of writing. It's looking at math. So we do have it in elementary. But we don't have that particular program at all of our secondary schools, but we can look into it.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Any more questions from the board? Okay, thank you, Deputy
Thank you.
Superintendent. Thank you, Superintendent. Very much appreciate all that, and let's keep up the progress. Moving on to Roman numeral 11, our action items. We'll start with the consent agenda, items 1 through 5. Is there anything that anyone wants to pull off or consider separately or ask questions about? And if not, is there a motion?
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Thank you, Dr. Gonzalez. Secretary Bozay with the second, I think.
No, it was Sasha.
Oh, Sasha. Okay, Board Member Anderson got there first. Any further discussion on the consent agenda? All right, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? No. Action item B, a memorandum of understanding between Santa Fe Public Schools and the National Education Association of Santa Fe for transportation stipends, school year 2021-2022. Superintendent.
Thank you, Board President Noble, members of the board. This agreement between NEA Santa Fe and Santa Fe Public Schools is to increase or provide a stipend for our transportation department in the amount of $1,000. We want to ask you for approval of this. This would go out this academic year or school year for all transportation employees. There's 69 employees in that department that would receive a $1,000 stipend each. So we do ask you for approval of this MOU between NEA Santa Fe and Santa Fe Public Schools.
I move approval.
Thank you, Board Member Anderson. Is there a second?
I will second.
Thank you, Secretary Bozay. Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving these stipends and MOU for transportation, the MOU between the Santa Fe Public Schools and the NEA Santa Fe, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Thank you very much. And Superintendent, really want to say thank you to you and the team for bringing this forward. It sounds like a needed item of appreciation for our transportation staff. Okay, action item C, an MOU between the Santa Fe Public Schools and the National Education Association of Santa Fe for stipends, school year 2020-2022, salary adjustment due to increase in unit value. Superintendent.
Thank you, Board President Noble, members of the board. This is a second agreement between NEA Santa Fe and Santa Fe Public Schools. It is a stipend of $400 for Santa Fe Public School employees, and this is due to the increase to the unit value. So we are calling it a one-time salary adjustment for Santa Fe Public School employees in the amount of $400, and we ask you for approval of this MOU.
Any questions on action item C?
No questions, Madam President. I move to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Secretary Bozay with the motion, Board Member Anderson with the second. Do the cafeteria managers get this?
They do, all employees.
Thank you. And also, just to clarify, this is because of the $100 increase in the unit value this school year, not the one we discussed earlier for next year's budget.
Correct.
Okay. We have a motion and a second for approval of the MOU for stipends and due to the salary adjustment because of the increase in the unit value. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries.
Madam President?
Yes, Secretary Bozay?
Is it possible on item B for the superintendent just to state for the record any information about where the funds are coming from, how that funding is working for that?
For the transportation stipends?
The transportation stipend. Just for the public and anyone that might wonder where that money's coming from.
Absolutely. Deputy Superintendent Wagner will explain to us where that money is coming from after she chews.
I was going to sneak in dinner, sorry. Board President Noble, board members, superintendent, colleagues. Our transportation department is categorically funded. What that means is they are given an annual budget explicitly allocated for transportation department use. This year, we have projected a department balance largely in part because of our driver vacancies. And so we thought it best to put that money right back in the pockets of the drivers and the aides and the persons represented by the union who have been working for the district and plan to come back with us next year.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Superintendent. Appreciate that. Okay, moving on to action item D, our 2022-2023 bilingual multicultural education program applications. Superintendent.
Thank you, Board President Noble, members of the board. What we have in front of you today is the application for the bilingual multicultural education program, and we identified the following schools will be identified as either a bilingual program or a heritage model bilingual program for the 22-23 school years. And they are El Camino, dual language, Cesar Chavez, dual language, Kearney, which is a dual language 4 through 6 and a heritage K through 3. Salazar is a dual language. Sweeney is also going to be included as a dual language. Ramirez Thomas, heritage. Ortiz Middle School, Milagro Middle School, Santa Fe High, and Capital are all heritage. It is going to be at a cost of $2.2 million, and this is an annual contract and application that we ask the board to approve. So again, we ask you to approve our BMET application to the state.
Board President Noble, would it be possible to see the item on the screen as
Yep.
we look? I just
Here we
don't
go.
have it here. Thank you.
So one thing I just wrote down for board discussion and possible action is, board members, if you have requests as to how this works and what you want on your packet, let the superintendent know. Obviously, we're getting back to this thing, so, we can improve and do whatever you need to have the information in front of you. Board Member Anderson.
Thank you, Board President Noble, Superintendent, members of the board. I have just a couple of questions. First, is every school eligible to apply, or are other schools, how do we decide which schools have a heritage language program and which schools have a dual language program?
Deputy Superintendent will help us out. However, our director of the program, Lisa Vigil, works directly with the sites, and it is based off of student interest and what they can provide as programming.
Board Member Anderson, Superintendent Chavez is correct. It's based on the number of ELs in a school site and programming, and for instance, dual language programs at El Camino, they wanted a two-way dual language program, so it does incorporate mono English learners and English learners, but typically it's based on the demographics of the school site.
Thank you so much, Deputy Superintendent. I said I have 2 questions, but now I have 3. I'm so sorry. Could you explain what the difference between a heritage language program and a dual language program is?
I can do that. So a dual language program, there are 2 different, there's a one-way dual language program, and that's servicing just monolingual Spanish speakers, and it's providing instruction in their home language as well as in English. Then we have two-way dual language programs, and that's what El Camino has, where they have English speakers and Spanish speakers learning English and Spanish at the same time. And so the curriculum alignment plan varies from school sites for dual language. At El Camino, I think it's a 90-10, so 90% of instruction is in Spanish, regardless of if you're an English speaker or a Spanish speaker. And as you go up grade levels, the English increases. But the main difference is a one-way and a two-way in dual language. And heritage, some schools decide that, we're going to focus on their home language in K through 2, but then as they get older, we're going to kind of move towards English. And so that's a heritage or a traditional or a transitional bilingual program.
And I just want to add that we're utilizing our ESSER funding to help teachers become bilingual
TESOL.
endorsed or TESOL endorsed. And we're doing that through New Mexico Highlands at no cost to the teachers. So we're helping cover that cost so we can provide programs like this and help us with the staffing that they need that certification.
That's great. Thank
And
you.
I will add, we do have people that come from other countries and they're at Acequia Madre or at Wood Gormley, and so we do provide sheltered English instruction or English language development instruction for those students at those school sites, because we don't have bilingual or necessarily TESOL teachers, but we do provide support to students.
Thank you so much. And my last question, I promise. Is there ever any thought given to, like, for example, we chose Cesar Chavez for its dual language program. And I know other folks have chosen schools out of their home districts or even in their home districts because they have a dual language program. Is there ever any thought given to perhaps adding dual language programs to under-enrolled sites to increase enrollment?
We have, right now, for example, Salazar Elementary is under-enrolled. They had a dual language program at one time, then it went away, and now they're trying to revive that. And so we are open to open enrollment, and I think part of it is we need to work on recruiting and, of course, advertising our programs, but absolutely.
And Board Member Anderson, that's why you see of Salazar, there's no grade level by it, because we are in discussions with that site to implement it once again.
Great, thank you so much. I'll post on social media tonight about dual language programs. And well, obviously. Thank you so much to both of you.
Thank you. You can have more questions if you want them. Okay. Well, I'm going to go ahead and move approval of the bilingual multicultural education program applications.
I will second that.
Thank you, Secretary Bozay. Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving these applications, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion's carried. Thank you very much. Action item E, request for award recommendation, E-rate, Form 470, I won't read the application number, for new and replacement wireless access points. Superintendent.
Thank you, Board President Noble, members of the board. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Neil Weaver, who has sat there all evening, and this is his time to speak.
Sorry about that. Thank you. Board President Noble, members of the board, Superintendent Chavez, what we have in front of us is a recommendation that came from a project where we evaluated the wireless coverage within our schools. From that project, it was recommended that we install additional or replace old wireless access points to the tune of 360 throughout 30 of our schools. This is an E-rate funded program through the Federal Communication Commission. The actual cost will be a little over $323,000. Once the project is completed, we will file with E-rate for an 80% reimbursement in the amount of approximately $260,000, resulting in a net project cost of $64,000. The great news is that once E-rate is approved, we can file through PSFA for an additional 10% rebate, which is an extra, I'm sorry, I gave you the wrong number last, an extra $32,000, bringing the total cost down to approximately $64,000. RTI, this was put out for RFP. The project was put out for a request for proposals. And after we evaluated the proposals, our recommendation is that we award to RTI, which is a partner that we commonly use at Santa Fe Public Schools.
So that was my question. Do you know the vendor?
We do,
RTI?
yes.
Okay. And have a good relationship with them?
Yes, ma'am.
Other questions?
I would also like to say I am reasonably certain that Dr. Weaver and Ms. Nordby and everybody in the department has used this E-rate opportunity really, really well to the benefit of our equipment in our schools. And so thank you, congratulations. It seems like, you know, and I'm sure it's always needing upgrades, but you're always finding something new to improve and make the access better. And this is a very low cost for some, I would imagine, pretty important infrastructure.
It is. Thank you.
Madam President, I move to approve.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you, Dr. Gonzalez. Any further discussion or questions on this? Okay, all those in favor of approving the request for the award recommendation, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Abstentions? Okay, that has been approved. Thank you very much, Dr. Weaver. Action item F, nomination to New Mexico School Boards Association 2022 scholarship. Is this, yes, please, Dr. Gonzalez.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Chavez, Member Anderson and I were on the committee to select these, the scholarship recipient. We had 4 applications, all stellar, really top students. And it was a little difficult, but one did rise to the top, and I'll have Member Anderson talk about it.
Sure, absolutely. So we selected Gilbert Morales from Capitol High School. We felt that his application was exceptional. Dr. Gonzalez and I separately reviewed the applications, and then when we came together, we had the exact same rankings. And it was exceptionally difficult. It really was. I mean, I just wanted, you know, congratulate each and every person who was nominated, because it was truly one of the hardest things I've ever done, and I've had 3 children, so, sorry. But his application was just outstanding, and I wish him and all of the applicants the best of luck in their secondary education. Their tertiary education, their post-secondary education.
Well, thank you both very much for doing that work. It is hard stuff. Because you pick one and then you haven't picked the other 3.
It would have been nice to give all 4.
So, is there a motion?
Madam President, I move to approve the nomination to the New Mexico School Boards Association scholarship.
I'll second.
And this is per the recommendation of Dr. Gonzalez and Board Member Anderson. Mr. Morales was his name?
Yes, Mr. Morales, Gilbert Morales.
Gilbert Morales.
Gilbert Morales. Excellent. Well, we wish Mr. Morales and all of the nominees the best of luck. Okay, there's a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, thank you again.
I have a quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Chavez, how does this, do you send the name forward? Okay. You want his application?
Yeah, we have a copy.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to item 10, board discussion and possible action. Anti-bullying and social emotional wellness in Santa Fe Public Schools. So in the spirit of the board working to act as a unit, I put this on the agenda just for us to discuss and maybe make an ask of the superintendent. Ultimately, I guess the perspective from what I've been hearing from folks that I talk to with kids in the Santa Fe Public Schools is that the issue of bullying and social emotional wellness, which I will note was a board priority when we had our retreat just after Board Member Anderson took up the office, that this is really a foundational issue. And as I've been thinking about it, I suspect that it is, you know, really one of those inflection points, we could say, the issue that, as a foundational issue, can define a lot. The behavioral problems that are going on in schools, in classrooms, all over. We've seen this in lots of places in society. There were reports a while back about violence in hospitals. We've seen lots of news stories, I have anyway, about unruly people on airplanes. And we even had a completely surreal moment at the fanciest of fancy nights at the Oscars, where, and as I think everybody in this system knows, kids are kind of the distilled end of society's dysfunctions, dysregulations, and I know I'm preaching to the choir in saying this is a giant issue. And I guess my request and thinking is that we do need to elevate this and talk about it at the board and every level, and that if anything, I would suppose my ask or request to the superintendent, I'm very glad to see Jen Jefferson here, is sort of for a comprehensive plan to adjust this. And I mean, some of what I'm hearing is that, and I can imagine, and it horrifies me when I do, what teachers and principals are dealing with given their own exhaustion. And, I just want to make sure we are doing everything we can, maybe with community partners, to really support folks in our schools with the tools that they need. Because, I mean, even at the end of my rope as a parent, I snap and say things that are not right, and I don't blame anyone in our system really who's done that. But I do think we need to pull out all the stops and keep elevating this issue because, again, I suspect everything grows from this getting better. And if we can support teachers and principals and everybody who is dealing with this in school sites, and of course wrap around and do what we can for students who, we're all a bit feral after 2 years in a pandemic. And my hope, again, so that the board can act as a unit, is to ask for any of your thoughts on what we would ask of the superintendent. Like I say, I just get to a general point of really a sort of elevated and somewhat comprehensive plan to provide supports and address this issue, because I know that I don't have many answers. I am certainly not an expert in this, but the need seems significant out there. And again, I think that the board needs to talk about it, and I think that we have a responsibility to keep doing our best and supporting the folks that are dealing with this really complicated and probably unprecedented level of, behavioral issues and trouble regulating. I mean, again, it's hard for all of us, but kids are young and haven't had as much time to work on those skills. So I guess that's my sort of discussion primer, and would love to hear anybody's thoughts and upgrades or disagreements or anything. Go ahead, Secretary Bozay.
Madam President, members of the board, superintendent, I'm glad that you brought this up, because one of the things that I was going to bring up here was hopefully to have a discussion about action that we wanted to take away from our study session that we had in March, because we got all of this incredible information and kind of overview of all of these different programs. And it's like, okay, great, so what are we gonna do with that now? And I think that that could have some overlap with what you're saying, because it is incredibly important. So I support that and would love to tie in some of those things from our study session, broaden them, make sure that they're equitably, distributed across all of our sites, and, yeah, it's a real thing.
Board Member Anderson.
Thank you, Board President Noble, members of the board, and Superintendent. Just a couple of questions. Do you foresee this, like, how do I put this? Encompassing the social emotional needs of the teachers and staff members as well?
I think so. I think I
Okay.
would hope so, yeah.
Yeah. And then, would it be possible to find out from student wellness sort of what the resources that they need are? The sort of needs that they have that aren't met right now that could enable them to really create we saw how robust their programming is, but an even more robust program? Okay, I think that would be really helpful.
Madam
Yeah,
President.
go ahead, Dr. Gonzalez.
Members of the board and superintendent, I would imagine that teachers are going to need professional development for this area. And so we need to do some planning for that as well.
And that's a great point. That's why we're working with President Grace, Mayor, and also the team to incorporate that into the week, right? Rather than outside of the school day, how can we do that within the school day and within the week at every single site? So that's, a task that we have on hand so we can meet those needs and provide that professional development within the school day.
Mhm. That's great. Thank you.
Go ahead, Board Member Anderson.
Just one more thing. I wonder, how can we as a board sort of ensconce this in board policy? I mean, we have an exceptionally supportive superintendent and a wonderful staff, but is there a way for us to sort of ensure that this kind of support lives on past any of us? I haven't introduced any policy. So I'm a total newbie at this, so I don't know if there's a way that we could discuss that as a board. I know, outside of here, we can't really have those discussions, so.
Reminds me of something else I wanted to bring up. I think that's great, and though, policies get forgotten.
Sure.
A surprising amount. So I've been texting the superintendent about our recess policy
Sure,
because, recess for elementary school kids cannot be taken away as a board policy, but from lots of things I hear, it does happen on occasion.
Indeed.
And I think it's not because anybody is intentionally violating board policy, it's because very often, these things get lost. How does this sound? And, I'm not that inclined to put a tight timeline on it, but, Superintendent, I think the ask to you is for something to come back to the board by way of suggestions, recommendations, needs that can be met, and sort of to your point, Board Member Anderson, I think that the biggest way that we, the collective we, the board and the district administration can demonstrate this as a priority is probably through our budget. And that's coming soon. So, I am sure that there would be robust consideration of the needs for this, but if that's agreeable with the board, I would say, part of what we're asking is for a plan to be detailed that maybe even, it starts to occur to me for the wellness of teachers and professional development, there's a lot of elements to it, and maybe there are board and community roles because, and even Ms. Ultreris's volunteer opportunity project and reaching out and parent engagement, because, that's part of it. We need parents and families to help and be on board with this. Did you want to comment?
Yeah, it's something I've been looking at. as we've spoken about, the pandemic has caused a variety of issues, mental health, a lot of things happened. And when I was asking around what should be my next issue, I heard from teachers that parent involvement was something that should be talked about more, because some parents, in my case, my mom did not speak English. She never understood what I was doing at school, and she had no way of helping me with that. And I feel that there's a lot of parents that go through this. They don't know what's going on in their classrooms. They don't know what students are doing. They don't know how their students feeling. Some of them, in my own experience, I've had, a parent come really late from work. I wasn't able to attend after school things. My social life was practically non-existent because I was too busy trying to figure out how I can manage doing my homework, asking for help, and all these other things. And the reason I wanted to touch, again, parent involvement is because it's very important for parents to know about this, and in this way, they can help us with this issue. And it's something I'd also want to speak with you all at another time, because the subject will touch, hopefully, all of these, will touch this issue as well as many others. That is my hope.
Wonderful, thank you.
May I, Board
Yeah,
President
please.
Noble? And, I had Jen Jefferson here with us so she could listen to this conversation. We also can review the policies that we have in place for training and providing this type of service. So as we mentioned, it's a review of the policy and maybe, bring in a new one forward or another AR for it, that attachment to that policy.
So that reasonably clear for you in terms of bringing us something back that maybe even looks at, some parent engagement elements and lots of threads to weave a beautiful and, absolutely problem-solving cloth, so we won't have this issue ever again anymore. Or at least we can set the bar at that, because things are pretty wild right now in the streets. Okay. Anything else on that? And just also to say, I don't know if there's anything anybody wants to put on for board discussion and possible action at a future agenda. You can always say so now. I would also like to invite student board members just to think about that if you ever want to put something on this part of the agenda. Go ahead, Board Member Anderson.
Thank you, Board President Noble. I wonder if we could, at our next board meeting, talk about the progress that's been made on the staffing crisis and the meetings between the city and the county, talking about housing. Could we talk about that in the future?
Yes.
Okay, great.
We absolutely can.
Cool.
Yeah,
That
it's
would be
really
great.
hard. I was going to do that update for board discussion and possible action.
I assumed it was, so I thought maybe I'd mention it now so that we have some, I mean, not necessarily at the next board meeting, but just sometime in the future.
Yeah.
That would be great.
That's great, and we'll put that on, and maybe I can even think about, and we can talk about not just the status, but if we see any inflection points, we'll use that phrase again, for the school district to impact this, because the housing issue is, as we saw in numbers this week, just spiraling out of control.
Thank you. That is what prompted my, they're outrageous, and people are really suffering.
Yeah.
Madam President.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, superintendent. I would ask that sometime in the future that we could have a discussion. I don't know if it's a board approach or the district approach to equity. I don't know if there's anything in place. I know that this was a relevant issue when I was campaigning, when there was the discussion about school closings and this isn't about school closings. I don't want to confuse anyone. But something that became clear to me at that time through those discussions was that sometimes we try to accomplish equity in a punitive manner instead of in a raise everyone up kind of manner. And so I didn't know if we had existing policies or anything like that, or if not, we wanted to talk about that and maybe,
Dr. Gonzalez.
maybe approach it.
I want to piggyback on that, Madam President, members of the board, and superintendent. When we first got elected, there was going to be like an equity committee that we had representatives that we chose to. That was the reimagining. Yeah, and then the pandemic happened. Nothing happened with that. So, and that was one of the main reasons why I ran for school board, was to look at the equity issue. I'm on the east side, and I know that my schools do okay, and I'd like to see how we can make them more equitable. So, thank you.
Great, we'll put that on a future agenda.
Third that. I was just going to say I third that motion.
Excellent, thank you. And one thing I'll put on a future agenda is just if we want to think about having another retreat. And, you know, it was just something that I was thinking about because we do have a lot of business to do in school board meetings. And, you know, I would hope we could figure out a way to do it in a sort of light and easy way that's not too hard on the superintendent and his staff. But I would love to open up some more time for us to talk about things, which, of course, we have to just do together with a published agenda and an open meeting, and we can do that, but yeah. Okay, anything else to think about for board discussion and possible action in the future? We will then move on to advanced planning. Superintendent, do you know of any changes we need?
Madam President, members of the board, I don't see any changes. Again, I just want to recognize that our graduation dates are on there, and it's going to be outside. And we're welcoming to all family members and guests and friends this year. So last year it was limited. I want to say 4 per graduate, and this year we don't have that limitation.
That's good stuff. Okay, thank you. Anything else on advanced planning? Next week, we have CRC and Audit Committee, and then the following week, a tentative executive session and regular meeting on a Thursday. Okay, one final thing, just want to recognize and thank maybe our biggest fan, I don't know, she never says what she thinks, but a blue ribbon former board member, Mary Ellen Gonzalez. It's great to see you back in the audience, and thanks for all you do, keeping the League of Women Voters informed and keeping us honest and all of that. Okay, seeing nothing else going on, we will go ahead and adjourn this meeting. Thank you all very much.